Here lie the shadows, where the sea whispers low, my hands, chilled to the bone, implore you to know. Why do your eyes remain so still, so hollow? Why did I fall for a rose, blinded by beauty's throes, aware of its thorns, yet drawn to its glow? Why did I reach for you, as if you were flesh, when all that I grasped was the weight of my breath? Now I wither with every tale of your gaze, embracing your absence in a sorrowful haze. As I drift on this tide, adrift and alone, you rise like the dawn, while I remain stone, living your best life, while I linger in night, a ghost in the twilight, lost from your sight. Oh, Grace, why did you have to die? The chilling night air only grew colder as young Timothy and Grace sat huddled on the frigid, hard ground of the ominous room that surrounded them like a sinister fortress. Shadows danced along the walls of their confined space, and with every passing moment, the oppressive atmosphere sucked the last remnants of warmth from their bodies. Timothy lay on the ground, his brow furrowed in concentration as he applied all his focus to the pain radiating from his injured leg, a result of their desperate escape attempt. Meanwhile, Grace paced anxiously around the narrow confines, her hands trembling and her nerves fraying like the edges of a worn-out tapestry. The dread of their situation began to seep into her bones. "Timothy, we need to get out of here," she urged, her voice tinged with the pitch of panic. "We can't, Grace. It's not going to be that easy," Timothy replied, his voice steady yet laced with despair. "There's not even a window or door in here." Realization washed over Grace like a cold wave as she turned her head side to side, taking in the grim reality of their surroundings. The room was nothing more than a stark, cube-shaped chamber with nondescript grey walls that seemed to close in on them. Defeated, she sank down beside Timothy, her heart heavy as she lay on the ground. "I never thought I would die like this," she whispered, glancing down at her chipped fingernails, a stark reminder of her fading hope. "I know," Timothy said, his voice heavy with the weight of their grim circumstances. The room felt even more suffocating, filled with their unspoken fears and the haunting knowledge that they had been led into a trap. "Marilyn has something to do with this. I can't shake the feeling that this is all part of a scheme, perhaps involving Hex and Sophia too," Grace said, meeting Timothy's gaze with a mix of fear and determination. She shook her head, her light hair falling around her face as she tried to rid herself of the suffocating thoughts. "Yeah, all three of them must be working together. It was a trap from the very beginning, and we just fell right into it," Timothy replied, the bitterness of betrayal lingering in his words. As Grace gazed upward at the dirt-streaked, grey ceiling, tears threatened to spill from her eyes, each drop representing regret and lost chances. "I knew something was wrong. I should have spoken up. If I had only listened to my instincts, I could have saved all our lives," she lamented, her voice cracking under the weight of her guilt. Timothy, sensing the turmoil brewing within her, reached out and pulled Grace into his arms, wrapping her tightly against him. He rested a comforting hand on her shoulder and gently wiped away the tears that cascaded down her cheeks. "You know, my mother used to say that you can't cry when you're about to die, or else you'll take all that sadness with you," he said softly, trying to offer her solace. In that moment, he hoped to transform their final moments into something more bearable, a shared comfort amidst the encroaching darkness. Marilyn and I sank into the worn cushions of the couch, the dim light casting shadows around us, while the chilled glass of old whiskey rested in our hands. The air was thick with unspoken grief. "You know, Eden," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "when you walked through the door that night, the night my daughter died, I thought surely this can't be real. How could the God of man allow this? I felt as if you were ripping my little one away from me, one piece at a time." His gaze fell to the floor, lost in the weight of memories. "But there's something that lingers in my mind more than anything else," he continued, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You never said you were sorry for my loss. You never came back, neither you, nor Cherub, nor even God. It hit me like a wave. I was never just an outsider. I was less than that. I was a ghost in my own life, a shadow lurking where there used to be light. I spent long, monotonous days clutching at her clothes, tiny garments that felt like they could barely fit in my hand, wrapping myself in blankets that had absorbed the essence of her, a bright pink that now felt like a mockery of the love that had once filled our home. I spent countless hours weeping, fighting against the endless tide of pain, and sometimes I felt as if I were just fading away, minute by minute. The people closest to me seemed to tilt their heads in pity, as if I were a fragile sparrow, and they were high and mighty, looking down upon me, a mere feather caught in their grandeur." His voice broke, and the tears began to escape, cascading down his cheeks like a relentless river of despair. "And you know, Eden, after a while, it became too heavy to bear. So I ventured into the realm of nothingness. And do you know what I found? Absolutely nothing. There wasn't even a whisper of my daughter's spirit. I combed through files and records as if I could unearth the truth, but it was as if she had been erased from existence. Doubt crept in, and a flicker of hope ignited within me. I thought perhaps she had crossed over to the realm of the deceased. I traveled there, searching tirelessly, calling out her name, but still, I found not a single spirit that could be called hers. He raised his head, and I was struck by the intensity of his gaze. It pierced through me, deep into the very core of my being. "Why are you still playing these games, Eden?" he implored, his voice tight with restrained fury. "Why won't you just tell me? I know you did something. I know they told you to do something to her." In a sudden burst of emotion, he erupted from the couch, hurling his pain into the room like an anguished scream. As I held his gaze, I saw the depth of his turmoil reflected back at me. My heart raced as I began to speak. It was Father. My words caught in my throat as I witnessed him turn away, clutching his head in disbelief, eyes lifted to the ceiling as if searching for answers. The realization washed over him. Of course, it was Father. The only being capable of orchestrating such a tragedy against Marilyn. The only one who could harbor such hatred to snatch away his sole hope for happiness. "Marilyn, you have to understand, Father was trying to protect you." My voice cracked, softer than I expected, but firm. "You are a god. And you were tying yourself down to a demon. You didn't even know it. A trick demon, one that crept into your life, wore your trust like a second skin, and made a home inside you. That child. That baby was your entrapment. A binding for eternity." Marilyn turned his head slowly, his expression contorting, and when his eyes met mine, there was no love in them, only venomous disgust. The kind that makes you feel smaller than you ever thought possible. Now, when I look back on that moment, I can hardly believe the words I let fall from my mouth. I was disgusted too, but not just with him, with myself. I should have felt it before I spoke, before I bled that truth out like a careless butcher. His voice came back sharp and cold, like glass being dragged across stone. "He might have been a demon," he said, each word deliberate, painful, "but at least he cared. At least he wanted me. At least he was someone I could run to when the sun turned grey and the moon was nowhere in sight." She stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. No longer the brother I remembered. This was a man who had been left too many times, and had finally chosen himself. He was watching me, not with rage, but with revelation, as if he were finally seeing me for who I really was. And she didn't like it. "He was hope," he said, his voice trembling now, barely holding together. "And so was my child. And if it all went wrong, if everything crumbled, what were you going to do, Eden? What was Father going to do? What would Cherub have done? None of you. None of you would have been there." His voice rose, not loud, but broken and raw, as he stood just inches from me. "If I was trapped, then I was trapped in that house forever, because I couldn't run to a single one of you. And then he changed." The corners of his mouth curled upward, not into a smile, but something darker. Cruel. Marilyn's lip twitched as he looked down at my shoes like I was some roach beneath them. Then, with a harsh exhale, he spat on the floor in front of me. He looked back up. Tears clouded his eyes now, and they weren't the kind that softened, they were the kind that burned, that drowned. "I wish you were never my brother." The words didn't shake. They landed like stone. "I wish you'd just lay down and die. Right here. In front of me." I lowered my eyes, unable to hold his anymore. There was no use trying. No path left to walk together. "Is that what you're going to do?" I asked quietly. He took a few steps back, his shoulders heavy, like every word we'd exchanged weighed tenfold on his spine. He sank back onto the couch, picked up the glass of whiskey, and took a slow sip. "No," he said, after a long silence. "I'm not going to take your life." Our eyes locked once more. He leaned forward from the couch, slowly, deliberately, his gaze crawling over me from head to toe like he was memorizing the shape of betrayal. His voice was cold when it came again. "I'm going to let you live with this." "I'm going to take your child," Marilyn said, voice dipped in venom. "The same way you took mine." And just like that, I felt it, the sharp gulp rising in my throat. It lodged there, heavy and hard like a stone. The silence that followed was deafening, but it didn't last long. Marilyn's lips curled upward. "Oh Eden, darling," he purred, cruelly sweet. "You didn't know I knew about Grace, did you? That was the greatest power Hex ever stole, from an offspring. Your offspring. The one who embodies the power of one of the greatest witches and the blood of a god." He stepped closer, relishing every syllable. "But you know what's funny?" He tilted his head. "I didn't expect your little human to fall in love with her. And now it's so much better. Because now, it's going to really hurt you. It's going to live with you. Every damn day. Until that sweet boy figures it out. And when he does." He laughed, a horrible, rasping laugh, like something torn from the chest of a dying animal. "He'll give up on life himself." Tears were already slipping down my face. Not from weakness, but from the weight of it all. The helplessness. The rage. "Oh, don't cry for her now, Eden," he sneered. "You weren't even there. You were never a real father. You were just blood, an echo in her life. A shadow." He took another long sip of his whiskey, then rose from the couch with a slow, theatrical grace. His silhouette in the dim light stretched tall and cruel. "But maybe that's fitting, isn't it?" he said. "To end like this. In shame. In agony. In despair. I swear I can feel Empro's children in the room, watching you fall." That was it. I stood. My blood was a storm in my veins. "Let me out, Marilyn," I said coldly, "or I will make a way out." Marilyn didn't even blink. He just snapped his fingers. And then the floor was gone. Just like that, my entire body collapsed downward. The fall was instant, brutal, and familiar. The building. The impact. The air rushing out of my lungs. It was the same place. The same moment I had met Timothy. I hit the ground. Hard. And then I woke up. Falling again. The same ground. The same scream trapped in my throat. The same pain on impact. I hit. I woke. I dropped. Again. And again. And again. A cycle. A loop. A prison. And just before the world folded in once more, I heard Marilyn's voice, quiet, as if whispered through layers of reality. "You better get used to it. Because the day is coming soon." But I wasn't thinking of myself anymore. My mind had left the fall behind. I was thinking of Timothy. And Grace. The room was changing, slowly but surely. The air had grown thin. The oxygen was disappearing like mist sucked into the sky. A soft hiss, almost imperceptible, filled the space. And Timothy, he was the first to feel it. His chest heaved once. Twice. And then he slumped, his knees giving out beneath him like crumbling pillars. "Timothy!" Grace cried out, rushing to him. His face had gone pale, his skin slick with sweat from the sudden heat. The oxygen-deprived room began to hum, and his body trembled in her arms. Grace dropped to the floor beside him, cradling him like a fragile bluebird, wings broken and breathless. "Timothy, Timothy, come on!" she gasped, tears stinging her eyes. She fanned his face with trembling hands, hopelessly trying to cool him down, as if air alone could undo what was happening. Her voice cracked. "Wake up, please." She rocked him gently, shielding him from the growing heat, her own breathing growing labored. Sweat trickled down her neck. Her vision blurred. But she didn't care. Not about herself. Only him. But her focus began to drift. She wasn't looking at Timothy anymore. Not really. Her eyes, wide and glassy, shifted toward the shadows gathering in the far corner of the room. The darkness twisted unnaturally, and from its black, formless swirl, they emerged. 3 figures. Men, though no ordinary men. The first stepped forward with the silence of a funeral march. His skin was as dark as the night sky without a single star, but his eyes burned white, not with light, but with the pale intensity of death itself. He was death's own son. No, death himself. Locks trailed from his head like coiled serpents, falling all the way to the floor. White skull paint was smeared across his face like a symbol of finality, like judgment made flesh. "Now, Grace. You know that ain't gonna work, honey," he said with a soft, bone-chilling drawl, as if he were comforting a child before the blade dropped. Beside him stood the second, a man cloaked in subtle grace, power hiding behind his eyes. "IAO. brother of Chris, son of Anu. His presence held the weight of ancient myth, the calm before celestial war. He didn't speak, not yet. His silence was deeper than any void. On Brother Death's other side stood the third man, wrapped in blackened armor, reminiscent of a forgotten samurai. A blood-red cloth veiled his face, only his dark, determined eyes visible. In his gloved hand, he held a long, curved blade, the metal humming softly, tasting the air. He was still as a statue, a monument to execution. Grace's heart plummeted, heavy with the knowing. This was it. She felt the final act unraveling around her like a threadbare curtain. The whispers she'd ignored, the signs she'd brushed aside, it had all led to this moment. They called him the Father of Black. There would be no running from death this time. Quietly, tenderly, she placed Timothy down. Her lips touched his forehead in a kiss that trembled. Her fingers lingered longer than they should have. Then she stood, not to fight, but to endure. Her fists clenched, not in rage, but in resolve. Her chest rose as she took in a final breath of defiance. When the man with the blade struck his sword gently against the ground, clang, Grace dropped to one knee. Her head tilted high, eyes locked onto theirs, unflinching. "I'm sorry," Io finally said, voice heavy with guilt but bound by duty. "But Queen Sophia demands a head. Or it will be mine." He looked away. He couldn't face her. Brother Death's grin spread like spilled ink. "Maryland promised me fame," he said. "And fortune." His voice curled like smoke, wicked and sure. "I always collect what's due." She turned to the man with the blade. The executioner. His voice was like gravel scraped across stone. "Maryland promised me the holy right. The return of my honor. To wield the Dragon of Hearts once again." He bowed his head slightly, then raised his blade. "I am sorry, woman. But your end is now." Grace closed her eyes. Her final tears traced her cheekbones like falling stars. Sling. The blade sang. Then silence. Her body collapsed like a bag of dust, her soul already cradled by the god's sleep. Her head rolled endlessly, down and down, like the peaks of Gaia's mountain valleys, lost in time. For the three men, it was only a task. A transaction. A sacrifice paid to destiny. One by one, they began to dissolve into the wind, not dying, but returning. Returning to their realms. Returning with their hands full of promises, dreams, and vengeance. While Grace lay motionless. No longer the radiant, fierce, hopeful girl I once knew. Gone. And I didn't know what to do. But Timothy. Oh, Timothy. He awoke to silence. Then, to the horror. He didn't rush to her side. He couldn't. His mind rejected the image, refused it. Instead, he screamed, a broken, animal cry that clawed its way from his throat. He grabbed at his face, his chest, tearing at his skin like it might help him unsee it. He cried until the earth shook, wept until the air bent around him. And without knowing it, with every sob, every scream, he stirred something ancient. Something cosmic. Something hidden in the bones of the universe. Before it could fully awaken, a sound erupted. A bell. Loud and deep. Gong. Its toll shivered through the entire universe. Even the gods stirred. Eyes opened. The balance shifted. The bell of judgment had rung. And he was coming. Not for Grace. Not for them. But for Timothy. And for me. In a blinding strike of lightning, faster than breath, we were taken, both Timothy and I, ripped from that cursed room. Transported to a realm I swore I'd never see again. A place soaked in memory, pain, and loss. And as we landed, still smoking from the divine bolt, I thought, this can't get worse. But I was wrong. This was just the beginning.